I don't know if you saw my last video, but I did a 2008 LTZ400 for a buddy of mine. When he bought me that quad, he bought me a whole box of extra parts, almost a complete motor and a full front suspension. So I was going to try selling those parts, but I figured let me take a look at Marketplace and see if there's any Z400s out there for sale that I can scoop up for a good deal. And well, here we are. As you can see, this is an extremely clapped out 2003 LTZ400. See, it's missing the top end, which I have in boxes, but the top end that came with this quad was beat. But the good thing is I have one that my friend bought me with the 2008, and this thing is in really good condition. You can still see cross hatching all through here. And these are some other parts that I had left over from the 2008. I'm not sure why, but he bought me some. These are 2003 suspension setup, hubs, stator. I have an extra set of cases with a crank, and this is a good crank, which is perfect because the crank in this is not good. Came with an HMF pipe, and we have the head here, and the head appears to be in good condition, and so do the valves. But I'm gonna take the head apart just like I did on the other one and lap in the valves and check everything and make sure that it's good to go. When I say this thing is clapped, it is clapped. It needs bearings, bushings, everything. I'm assuming that when I get into this bottom end, it's gonna need a complete bearing replacement. These plastics are sun damaged, faded, and scratched up. The good thing is these wheels, or at least the rear wheels, look like they're in good shape. Front wheels are a little bit beat up. I'll probably repaint those. Front tires are a little worn, but not too bad. And the rears are brand new. They put the rear tires on when they were trying to fix this thing up and then realized that they were in over their head. Sprocket and chain are very rusty. Rear brake, surprisingly, is not locked up. I have to check the front brakes. Got some decent looking Nerf bars. Headlights are faded. So this thing is going to be a complete breakdown and light restoration. So the first thing I'm going to do is start taking off the plastics and the gas tank and see what we're working with underneath. That's what happens when you use nuts and bolts that don't have the same threads. I'm going to fish these cables down through the plastics. And surprisingly, the air filter doesn't look too bad. It's got some dirt, It just needs to be cleaned off. Yeah, that was really stuck. But the contacts look like they're in pretty good condition. They just sprayed down these bolts with some PB Blaster. These front plastics. Oh, if that wire's connected. That doesn't look like anything's connected. I'm going to continue on removing the wires, whatever wires that I can. All right, next, I'm going to try to get these Nerf bars out of the way. I just removed the starter and the starter gear, and look at all these metal shavings that are in here. And you can see that's all wallowed out. And I'll show you exactly why that happened. So here's the gear and here's the cover, and when this was installed, this is supposed to have a bushing in here. It must have fallen out and they didn't notice. So this gear, when it rides in here, got all that play. So that's why that damaged the case on the other side. So I have another cover that looks like it's good, so I can use this, but I'm gonna have to replace this whole part of the case right there, or get that repaired. But I think it's probably cheaper just to buy a new case if I can find one. There's a lot of metal in here. All right, we got the motor out. The swing arm bolt surprisingly came out fairly easily. I thought that maybe I was gonna have to order a replacement bolt, but that one's good to go, just needs to be cleaned up and have the motor here on the bench. So I'm gonna tear down a little bit more of the suspension, try to get these wires disconnected and remove the bars. And then I want to start tearing into the motor to see what we need so I can get those parts ordered. But I'm hoping that I have enough here left over from my parts motor that I'm not going to need anything except for bearings. I don't have any bearings in here. I threw the bearings away, so I'm probably going to have to order some bearings. All right, and just like that, I have the thing completely assembled. So I'm gonna skip over to the motor. And first thing that I saw when I removed the clutch cover is, look at all this metal. With the cases split, we can see that we have metal flakes, metal chunks everywhere all throughout this motor. Now that the rod is freed up on the crank, you can see the excessive amount of clay. I'm sure a large amount of those metal flakes was from the crank bearing. So next, we're going to go through the transmission. We're going to check all the gears. We're going to check all the dogs. I already have the shift forks pulled. And after examining these shift forks, they look like they're in very good condition, very little wear. And just like that, the frame's done. I know not everybody's gonna love this color. Actually, I'm not sure if I love this color yet. I was aiming for something a little bit darker, but this is the way that it came out, so I'm gonna roll with it, and we'll see how it looks once we start to assemble it. It's definitely gonna be a little bit different. Here I'm mounting the bumper just so I can see what the contrast of the black and the blue look like together. I'm gonna have to remove this bumper later to install the A-arms. After the bumper's installed, I'm gonna install the rear subframe. The rear subframe sticks out pretty far, so I'm gonna have to reposition the frame on the stand so it doesn't fall off. Once it's in position, I'm gonna install some fresh hardware. Now I'm going to prepare the ball joints in preparation for the installation of the steering knuckles. I'm going to add a little bit of anti-seize here. Once the castle nuts are installed, don't forget to install your cotter pins. I got a bunch of stuff installed since the last video update. I apologize, I was having some technical difficulties with the camera. But I got the bottom end completed and back in the quad. Now we're just waiting on some parts so I can start putting the rest of that together. Finish the top end. Mounted the air box. Got the radiator mounted and the fan. The radiator shroud. Brake lines, brakes. Still waiting on the levers. I have my shocks ready to be assembled today. They're refinished. Hopefully they'll be going in the quad today. Mounted the nerf bars. And I started wiring up some of the electronics. Mounted the CDI and the voltage regulator. They're not wired in yet. mounted the coil. I wired in the coil, connected the fan connectors, as well as the temperature sensor. All of the shocks were rebuilt and refinished. Here you'll see that I'm reassembling the front shocks. I use a combination of clamps to compress the spring. I use a bar clamp, a large bar clamp, and a couple of smaller clamps. Rubber stopper kept getting in my way from installing the collar, so I needed to use a screwdriver to move it out of the way. I eventually got that accomplished. And then you'll see I push the stopper back down into position. Now that the shocks are completed, I can install them on the quad. First, I'll install the right side. And now the other side. And lastly, I'll install the rear shock. For now, I'll just leave it hanging because I need to complete the swing arm next. Next, I'm going to tackle this swing arm. I'm going to be replacing all the bearings, and let me put a light in here so you can see this. Look at these bearings. They're like little pebbles. So we're going to be replacing the bearings, the bushings and the seals and the swing arm, and then I'm going to mount it back up. Here I'm just removing that old broken bearing material with a magnet. I'm going to spray down these bearings with some penetrating oil in preparation for the removal of the bearings. I use a C-clamp with a combination of sockets and apply a little bit of heat as I tighten down the C-clamp to remove these bearings. After the swing arm bearings were replaced, we installed the swing arm and buttoned up the rest of the loose ends and got this thing completed. Unfortunately, there was a lot of footage that I wasn't able to capture. My iPhone that I use to make these videos finally called it quits and refused to charge any longer. So this clip is being made with my new device. As you can see, we refinished the plastics. We added graphics. A lot of the engine work I didn't capture, but if you refer to my previous Z400 video, I'll put a link down in the description. You can see where I tackled the top end and the head of a Z400. In the end, I think that this quad was one of my favorite transformations. I was a little unsure of the color combination, but I think it turned out awesome. I listed this thing for sale and it sold in just 3 days. After it sold, the guy that bought it messaged me that there was a small oil leak from the stator cover, so he brought it back to be repaired. So I got to enjoy it for one more day once the repairs were complete, and as I looked at it in the garage, I was kind of sorry that I sold it. So that's going to conclude this video, but stay tuned. The guy that I bought this Z400 from also sold me a 1991 RM250. It's probably in the worst shape of any RM250 that I've ever seen. He sold it to me for practically nothing, so I couldn't pass it up. So the plan is to do a resto mod to make it look like a 1989, and I can't wait to show you how the RM250 turns out. Made it this far in the video. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and keep an eye out for the next video.